Well, hey, everybody. Dennis Tooley here with the MS Warriors Way podcast and Multiple Sclerosis TV. And it's Wear Orange Wednesday. So I'm sporting my orange. And typically on Wear Orange Wednesday, I do my part to spread as much awareness as I possibly can about multiple sclerosis and things that people might need to know about living with this monster that we call MS. And today, I wanted to jump on to talk a little bit about some tips for those people who are newly diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I jumped on a couple of different groups on Facebook, some social media groups made up of folks who have MS. And I asked them the question, if you were talking to somebody who was just newly diagnosed with MS, what words of advice would you have for them? What is one tip that you would give to them that you wish somebody would have given to you when you were first diagnosed? I know for that time frame when I was first diagnosed, I did have a lot of questions. And, I got online to do a little bit of research for myself. And I did find resources like the National MS Society and the MS Foundation who have some fantastic resources out there. But those resources were more about the generalization of the disease, what you need to know about the disease. And there were some practical things that I wish somebody could have shared with me back then. So I asked my friends and my connections in social media, what are some tips that you might have? And the responses that I got back were kind of across the board with a lot of great tips. But the top 10 tips that came back that I could see that were kind of consistent themes of what people were sharing that they wish somebody would have shared with them or that they would want to share with a newly diagnosed person. I kind of put those things together. And here are those top 10 tips that people would share. The number one tip that came across more than any other was stay positive. Stay positive. Yeah, you get this diagnosis of this debilitating disease where there is no cure. It can be pretty demoralizing. It can be pretty discouraging. Quite honestly, it can be very depressing. But if you intentionally make yourself look for the positive and you focus on staying positive in a very negative situation, and we actually have a video here on the Multiple Sclerosis TV channel on YouTube. You can go back and find that and watch that episode. And I'm probably going to have more of these episodes about staying positive in a very negative situation. How do you stay positive when things aren't going so great? But the reality is, it is so important for us to stay positive because the more positive we are, the better we end up being in terms of how we handle the day in and day out issues that we have with multiple sclerosis. So the number one thing that came back in the tips from people would be stay positive. In fact, several of them said stay positive, even to the point where you need to surround yourself with positive people so that when you are struggling to stay positive in your own dealings with the monster, you'll have other people that will encourage you with that positivity. They'll be there to support you with that positivity. So they said, stay positive and surround yourself with some positive people. The second tip that came to the top of that list was stay active. It's so easy for us to to recognize, oh, the symptoms that I'm dealing with, I don't feel like doing much today. And then we get pretty comfortable with just sitting and staying very sedimentary. And you can't just sit back. You've got to stay active. And so people, when I said, what tip would you have for somebody that's newly diagnosed with MS? They said, tell them to stay active. In fact, there were a number of people that were talking about staying active, and even to the point of, if you haven't started exercise, if you don't have an exercise routine, they said start an exercise routine. So they were saying it is critical for you to not only to stay active, but that you need to start exercising and find a way to strengthen yourself. And the cool thing is, there are some phenomenal resources out there that will help you to find an exercise routine or a regimen of exercise, so that if you're struggling and you're dealing with leg issues and you can't stand, there's chair exercises. There's all kinds of types of things you can do sitting down that will give you good exercise. But the ultimate importance is that you stay active. You don't allow yourself just to kind of sit in the corner or sit on the couch and veg. So again, so the first tip that I got from the group was stay positive. Second tip was stay active. The third tip that came to the top fairly consistently across the board was to identify your support system. Find or grow your own support system if you don't already have one, but identify your support system and make sure that you are staying connected to that support system. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the issue of staying active, is surround yourself with active people. So you want to stay connected to those folks, and you want to surround yourself with them. So you need to identify that support. And then if you don't have a support system, if you don't have a support group that you're part of, by all means, start one. The National MS Society, the MS Foundation, they both have great resources that they will make available for you to start an MS support group, and they'll help you promote it. And so you can find folks in your area that may be looking for that same support system or that support group that you're looking for. So the next tip that came to the top was it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's encouraged. So many times we kind of have been raised or taught ourselves that we pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. We do it all for ourselves, and we want to be independent. But the reality is, we all are born with a need to connect and a need to be part of community, a need to be engaged with others. And so part of that engagement is allowing yourself to reach out to those around you in that support group, that support system we just talked about, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. There's two things that happen. First, you get the help that you need, and second, you allow somebody else to be a blessing to you, and in that, it actually becomes a blessing to them. So it's okay to ask for help. That's one of those big things that early on, I wish somebody would have kind of drilled that into my head, that it's okay to ask for help. The fifth tip that came up fairly regularly was, you've got to be your own advocate. You are your own advocate. And so equip yourself with the questions that you want to hear from your doctor. If you're going to talk with your doctor, go in with a list of questions you're prepared to ask, and don't leave until you get them answered. If your doctor isn't listening, then slow them down or find somebody that will, in their office, a nurse or an assistant or whatever, and say to them, I'm not leaving until the doctor hears me. Not just I'm not leaving until the doctor talks to me. I'm not leaving until the doctor hears me. They need to listen to what you're going through. They need to hear the things that you are actually dealing with. The first neurologist that I shouldn't say the first, the second neurologist that I saw when I was diagnosed, the first neurologist that diagnosed me was actually an epilepsy specialist. And she told me right away that if I have MS, I should find an MS specialist, an MS neurologist. And so I went looking for that. And I went and saw a second neurologist, and he said he understood multiple sclerosis, but then in the same sentence, he told me that some of the symptoms that I was talking about, they wouldn't be MS related because MS didn't cause pain. I wanted to punch him in the nose and tell him that me punching him didn't cause him pain either, but I didn't. The point I'm making, though, is you need to find you need to be able to be your own advocate and make that person listen. You need to make sure that that doctor is hearing what you're going through and help them see that it is truly, part of the process is you understanding, not only getting the doctor to talk to you, but that you want to be understood by the doctor so that you can understand the doctor. So you've got to be your own advocate. It'd be nice if you have others that will stand up for you, but unfortunately, we don't live in a time where you have a whole lot of people that are willing to take time off from work and go be your advocate for you. So you've got to be your own advocate. Another tip that came to the top of the list was listen to your body. Pay attention to what's going on. If you're struggling with something, chances are your body is trying to tell you, slow down, rest a bit, don't push yourself past your limits. You got to identify how much you can actually do and for how long you can actually do it, and pay attention and listen to your body. And I'm not saying stop doing stuff. I'm saying listen to your body so you can accomplish as much as you want to in the time frame that your body's going to allow you to. So the reality is things have changed. And so you've got to listen to your body and let your body kind of help you determine how much you can accomplish, how much you can do in the process of adapting to what's going on with the multiple sclerosis. Which brings us to the next tip that people brought up is you need to embrace your new normal. You've been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Things are going to change. Things have already changed for you. That brought you to this diagnosis. You noticed changes. You went to the doctor. They said, hey, let's run some tests. And then they came back and said, guess what? You have multiple sclerosis. Embrace the new normal that you have, because things are going to continue to change as a result of what's happening with how the disease is chewing away at the myelin, the coating around the nerves in your nervous system. It's going to bring changes. So instead of trying to deny that and try to avoid it, acknowledge it and embrace it and adapt to it. People hear me say this quite often. You don't have to adapt. Survival is optional. But the reality is, if you're going to find life that is abundant and life that you can thrive in spite of the multiple sclerosis, you're going to have to, you're really going to have to embrace this new normal. Acknowledge the changes that are going on and say you're okay with it. And if you're not okay with it, talk with some people to help you get okay with it, and then embrace that. And I will also say this: embrace your new normal, but don't fall in love with it, because it's going to change. It's about to change because something's going to come up. You're going to have a new symptom that's going to pop up, and you're going to have to get used to that. But if you're willing to embrace that new normal and say, guess what? This is part of who I am now. It's part of who my life is, what my life is now. Not so that the multiple sclerosis can become the controlling factor in your life, but if you embrace the new normal, then you can determine and you can decide what you're going to do with how the changes are coming. So again, embrace your new normal. Another tip that came to the top of the list was that you need to engage in some MS communities. And they were talking about both virtual communities, so online, social media type things on Facebook, on Instagram, on different places. You'll find a lot of MS support groups or MS groups that are part of this community that understand what you're going through. They get you. They can answer questions for you. They can encourage you. They can challenge you. So find a good, I belong to, I don't know how many Facebook groups that are MS related. And I belong to those communities for two things. I want to be there so that if I have questions, I know I have people that understand me that I can ask my questions. But I also want to be there to be supportive of those in the community, so that if they have questions, I might have an answer for them. I might know of a resource that will help them. I might know of someone in the group that can give some light to that. And so engaging in an MS community virtually is very beneficial. But also, this kind of goes back to that find your support group or find your support system, identify it, and engage in that support system. If you don't have an MS community where you are, find one. But if there's an MS community where you live, engage, get involved so that you can be a support there and you can get support there. It's kind of a give and take type thing. So it's important for you to engage in the MS community. So you're engaged with people who totally get what you're going through, and they can help encourage you and provide you in the right direction to finding resources that you may need. Another one that came up regularly when I asked this question to the different groups that I asked, was the importance of eating right, supporting your immune system by what you eat. The reality is, if you know me, and if I backed away from the camera, you'd see that I have a gut. I'm a man of size. I don't like to say I'm fat, but let's be honest. I'm big enough that I could lose half my body weight and I would still probably be obese. I don't know, maybe not. But the point is, I like to eat, but I also realize that there are things that I shouldn't eat because there are things that cause inflammation. And if you're eating something that's causing inflammation and you're actually feeding the disease, you're causing the more inflammation, more issues. That's not doing you any good, and it's not doing anybody else any good. So it's important to eat right. Now, there are all kinds of diets out there. You've got the wall diet, you got the swank diet, you got you got all these different diets, right? I don't know, I've looked at some of the wall protocol, and there's some of it I go, okay, that makes sense. But then, she goes way off into the weeds and actually eat weeds. I don't know if she actually says that. I made that part up. But there are so many different diets out there that truly those diets are designed to help eliminate foods that don't support your immune system. So I will say this. A few years back, I was looking at a little bit of information from the Walls diet about how gluten, which is something that truly does impact inflammation in your system, how that, she was saying you got to get gluten free. And so I kind of looked into it and I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what happens. And if I do it and again, because I understand how our systems and our bodies work, you can't just try it for a couple of days and say, well, it didn't change anything. So I committed to trying it for a minimum of 1 month. And if I didn't see any difference after 1 month, then I would maybe rethink it. So I went gluten-free, and within 2.5 weeks, I didn't even have to wait a month, but within 2.5 weeks, I noticed some significant differences in how I walk and in my energy and in my focus. Cognitively, I was thinking clearer. And so guess what? I said I'm going to be gluten-free, not because it's a fad, not because it's the in thing to do, although it became very, very popular, very in thing to do during about that time when I was actually trying it. But I realized that I need to do something that's going to support my immune system by eliminating gluten from my diet so that my body can actually have a fighting chance to do what it needs to do. So my encouragement to you, and I'm not a doctor, trust me, I don't have all those answers. In fact, I never played a doctor on TV. But I will say that if you look at some of these diets that are out there that may help you with your multiple sclerosis, may help you be better, try something for a month. If it is bringing about positive responses in your system, then continue to do it. If you're saying, you know what, I tried this for a month, I didn't see any difference, so I'm going to go back to doing whatever. So I just want to encourage you to think about what you can do to support your immune system by what you eat. For me, personally, I can tell you that removing gluten from my diet helped. I will also let you know that there's been some times, and in fact, just recently, I kind of got a little bit lax because there were foods that I wanted to eat, and I don't have an allergy to gluten. It's not that I can't think of it. There's a term that they call that, and somebody might be putting it in comment, right? Oh, guess what? It's this. I don't remember what they call that, but you can. Here's the thing: you don't have to have an allergy to it. If it is bad for your system, it may not show up as an allergy. It's just going to cause more inflammation and cause you more issues. I don't have an allergy to gluten. I can eat bread. I can eat all the stuff that has wheat in it. In fact, there's some of it I really like. And I kind of got a little bit lax in what I was paying attention to. And I've noticed because I was eating so much gluten, I realized that my legs were causing me issues again. My cognitive issues were causing me issues again. So it's time for me to get back to cleaning up and getting back to that gluten-free diet and not cheating, because cheating doesn't necessarily do you any harm, but it absolutely doesn't have to do you any good either. So, and then the last thing, I got off track. I got talking about food, and that I could get there all day. I could just talk about food because I like to eat. The good thing is I haven't come across any of the MS diets that tells me that I shouldn't eat bacon, because bacon is good. And if you don't believe that bacon is good, you're wrong. No. Anyway, the last tip that came up when I was asking about tips for the newly diagnosed, people that might have some questions or need some answers, the one thing that came up consistently was you need to find a good MS specialist, a good multiple sclerosis neurologist, someone who totally understands your MS, and they know what's going on. They know about the different disease modifying drugs, the medications that are out there. They can tell you what's going to be best for you. They can give you ideas of how certain ones may have side effects that you may or may not tolerate very well. You're going to need somebody that gets that. And I'm not talking about just get a good neurologist. Get a good multiple sclerosis neurologist, a specialist in MS. I'm blessed with the fact that I live in Indianapolis, and one of the nation's leading MS specialists actually is part of the Indiana University medical team. And so I was able to get in and be a patient of Dr. Madsen's, and that has meant so much in terms of how I can understand what's going on, and to be able to talk with him about things that, and this kind of may go along with eating and supporting your immune system, whatever, but supplements that I think, I've asked him about, should I try this? Should I take this? And he's been able to give me insights on things that may be very helpful and some things that may not be very helpful because they've done some tests on them and whatnot. But having somebody that totally gets and understands the MS as a neurologist is very important. And it's one of those things that I mentioned it when I was diagnosed. The neurologist that actually diagnosed me, she knew enough to see that this was multiple sclerosis. But in terms of treating it and dealing with it, past that, she strongly encouraged me to find an MS specialist because that was not her specialty. And so you may come across a neurologist that has an ego the size of Texas, and they may not say, well, you need to find a different neurologist because I don't know MS as much as some others. Don't let them tell you that. You find out, are they an MS specialist? Do they understand it? If they don't, find a good MS neurologist. That's something that came to the top when I asked for tips for the newly diagnosed MS patient. People across the board said, find a good MS neurologist. So again, those top 10 lists, the top 10 tips that came up in my question of asking people, what tips would you have for the newly diagnosed MS patient? They said, stay positive, stay active, identify your support system, find it and grow it if you don't already have one, they said. Ask. It's okay to ask for help. You are your own advocate. Be prepared to be your own advocate. Listen to your own body. Embrace your new normal. Engage in an MS community, both online and face-to-face. And eat to support your immune system. And find a good MS neurologist. So there's the top 10 tips that I found by asking a group of folks who have MS, who have seen things. They came around and said, if you're going to give tips to the newly diagnosed MS patient, here's some things you want to share. So I hope this has been helpful. If this has made sense, please give us a thumbs up. If you're finding this beneficial, please go ahead and subscribe. Someplace down here, I don't know where the subscribe button is on your computer, but there's like this big red thing that says subscribe, and so I would encourage you to subscribe and like what we've got going on here, and share it with others. So if it's helpful, please subscribe. And while you're subscribing, hit that little bell, because if you hit that little bell that's next to the subscribe thing, that'll get you connected to finding all of the new videos or podcast uploads that we put in. So you'll be aware of the new things that we're adding. And so please like it, share it, subscribe to it. And if you've got questions or comments about anything that we covered today, please leave us a comment. And if you've got other questions about multiple sclerosis, feel free to ask. Again, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a doctor. I didn't play one on TV, but I do know how to find answers. And I do have a good connection to a lot of other people with MS. And like I say, I've got a great MS specialist neurologist that I can ask questions of. And he's always been very generous in answering my questions. So let me know how I can help you. Leave me a comment and let us know that this has been beneficial for you. Again, thanks for letting me spend a little bit of time with you today. I'm Dennis Tooley with the MS Warriors Way podcast and Multiple Sclerosis TV. And I hope you have yourself a fantastic week. Remember, it's Wear Orange Wednesday, so let people know they need to be aware of what's going on with multiple sclerosis. Let's spread the word and get people aware, so that hopefully we can find the person with the right connections to find a cure for this monster that we have to live with on a regular basis. Thanks so much. God bless and have a great day.